The Spirit created the planets, the suns, plants, animals, with one goal in mind: to satisfy his spiritual need. This is quite logical since he is purely spirit. You may wonder why there is a need to create material things to attain spiritual fulfillment. I offer this by way of explanation. The Creator sought spiritual experiences through a material world. In order to have these experiences, he wanted to embody a tiny part of his spirit in a physical entity. To do this, he called on the fourth force, the force which concerns only spirituality. In this domain, universal law also applies. You most certainly know that the pattern of the universe dictates that 9 planets revolve around their sun. It is also the case that these suns revolve around a bigger sun, which is the nucleus for 9 such suns, and their 9 planets. So it continues, right to the center of the universe, from where the explosion referred to by the English as the Big Bang originated. Needless to say, certain accidents occur and sometimes a planet will disappear in a solar system, or perhaps enter it, but later in time the solar system will revert and base its structure again on the number 9. The fourth force had a very important role to play. It had to bring to fruition all that the Spirit had imagined. It inserted, thus, an infinitesimal part of the Spirit in the human body. This comprises what you could call the astral body, which forms 1/9 of the essential human being and consists of 1/9 of a higher self, which is sometimes called overself. The higher self of man is, in other words, an entity which sends 1/9 of itself into a human body, becoming the person's astral being. Other physical bodies are inhabited similarly by other 9ths of the same higher self, and yet each part remains integral to the central entity. Further, the higher self is a 9th part of a superior higher self, which, in turn, is a 9th part of a more superior higher self. The process continues as far back as the source, and allows the enormous filtration of spiritual experience required by the Spirit. You must not think that the higher self of the first category is insignificant in comparison with the others. It functions at a lower level, but is nevertheless extremely powerful and important. It is capable of curing illness and even resuscitating the dead. There are many instances of people, declared clinically dead, who are brought back to life in the hands of doctors who had abandoned all hope for them. What generally happens in these cases is that the person's astral body meets with the higher self. This portion of the higher self has left the physical body during the period of death. It perceives its physical body below, and the doctors trying to resuscitate it. It can also perceive loved ones who mourn for it. In his present state, the astral body, the person will feel perfectly well, even blissful. Usually he abandons his physical body, frequently the source of much suffering, to find himself catapulted down a psychic canal, at the end of which is a wondrous light, and beyond, a state of bliss. If before passing through this canal into the blissful light, which is his higher self, he has the least will not to die, not on his own account, but for the sake of those who need him, young children, for example, he will ask to return. In certain cases, it will be permitted. You are in constant communication with your higher self by means of your cerebral canal. Acting as a transmitting and receiving post, it conducts special vibrations directly between your astral body and your higher self. Your higher self monitors you continually, by day and by night, and can intervene to save you from an accident. Someone, for example, who is to catch a plane, finds that the taxi breaks down on the way to the airport. A second taxi called also breaks down, just like that. Just like that. Could you really believe in such a coincidence? The plane in question crashes 30 minutes later, leaving no survivors. Another person, an old and rheumatic woman and barely able to walk, starts to cross a street. There is a loud horn blast and a screeching of tires, but this person is miraculously able to leap to safety. How is this explained? It was not yet her time to die, and so her higher self intervened. In 1/100th of a second, the higher self triggered a reaction in her adrenaline glands which, for a few seconds, provided enough strength to her muscles to enable her to execute the leap which saved her life. Adrenaline released into the blood can make it possible to flee from imminent danger, or to defeat the unbeatable through anger or fear. In too strong a dose, however, adrenaline becomes a lethal poison. It isn't only the cerebral canal which is able to conduct messages between the higher self and the astral body. Another channel exists sometimes in dreams, or, I should even say, in sleep. At certain times during sleep, your higher self is able to call your astral body to itself and either communicate instructions or ideas, or to regenerate it in some way, replenishing its spiritual strength or enlightening it in regard to solutions to important problems. For this reason, it is essential your sleep is undisturbed by intrusive noise or by nightmares resulting from harmful impressions received during the day. Perhaps you will better understand the importance of your old French saying, "Night brings counsel." The physical body in which you exist at the moment is already very complex, but still, it is nothing compared with the complexity of the process of evolvement which occurs with astral bodies and higher selves. In order to allow ordinary people on our planet to understand as easily as possible, I will make my explanation in the simplest terms. Your astral body, which inhabits every normal human being, transfers to its higher self all the sensations that are experienced during a lifetime in a physical body. These sensations pass through the immense filter of 9 higher selves before arriving in the etheric ocean that surrounds the spirit. If these sensations are based essentially on materialism, the higher selves have enormous trouble filtering them, just as a water filter clogs quicker if it filters dirty water than if the water was already clear. If, through the numerous experiences you have in your life, you ensure your astral body benefits in a spiritual sense, it will acquire more and more spiritual understanding. In time, which can vary from 500 to even 15,000 of your Earth years, your higher self will have nothing more to filter. This part of itself, embodied in the astral being of yours, will be so spiritually advanced, it will have arrived at the next stage where it will have to contend directly with the more superior higher self. We can compare this process with a 9-stage filter intended to rid the water passing through of 9 elements. At the end of stage 1 in the process, 1 will have been completely eliminated, with 8 remaining. Of course, to make this information easier to digest, I am making enormous use of imagery. This astral body, then, will have completed its cycle with the higher self of the first category, and will then detach itself from higher self number 1 to rejoin the higher self of the second category. The entire process will be repeated. By the same token, the astral body will be sufficiently spiritually advanced to pass to a planet of the next category as well. In his wisdom, the spirit, by means of the 4th force, provided for 9 categories of planets. Earth is a planet of the first category, and therefore at the bottom of the scale. What does this mean? The planet Earth could be likened to a kindergarten with the emphasis on teaching basic social values. A planet of the second category would then correspond with a primary school where further values are taught. In both schools, adult guidance is imperative. The third category would comprise secondary schools where a foundation of values allows exploration beyond. Next, you would go to university, where you are treated as an adult, for you would not only have attained a certain amount of knowledge, but you would also start to accept civic responsibility. This is the type of progress occurring with the 9 categories of planets. The more spiritually advanced you are, the more you will benefit, on a superior planet, by an environment and general way of life which is superior. The very way in which you procure food is much easier, which in turn simplifies the process of organizing your way of life. The consequence is more effective spiritual development. On the higher planets, nature itself enters the stage to assist the pupil, and, by the time you reach planets of the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th category, not only is your astral body highly evolved, your physical body has also benefited from your development. On the 9th category planet, it is possible either to remain in a physical body or be reunited with the Great Spirit in the ether. You have understood that the astral body is a body which inhabits your physical body, recalling and noting all the understanding acquired during the course of its various lives. It can only be enriched spiritually, not materially. The physical body is merely a vehicle which, in most cases, we abandon when we die. By this, I mean that some of the humans, including all on 9th category planet, are able to regenerate the cells of their bodies at will. Thiauba is one of 3 planets that are the most highly evolved in this galaxy. Some of them can, and do, directly join what they call the Great Ether. So, on planet Thiauba, they have arrived at a stage near perfection, both materially and spiritually. But they have their roles to perform, as does every creature existing in the universe. In fact, everything, including a single pebble, has its role. Thiauba's role, as beings of a superior planet, is to guide, to help with spiritual development, and even, sometimes, materially. Thiauba is in a position to give material assistance because they are technologically the most advanced people. Indeed, how could a father give spiritual guidance to his child if he were not older, more educated, and more skilled in diplomacy than the child? If the child should require physical punishment, as unfortunately is sometimes the case, isn't it important that the parent be physically stronger than the child? Certain adults who refuse to listen and who are absolutely stubborn also need to be corrected by physical means. We live on the planet Earth, which is sometimes called the planet of sorrows. Indeed, the name is appropriate, but it is this way for a precise reason. It is intended to provide a learning environment of a quite specific kind. It is not because life there is so difficult that you have to intervene. You cannot lightly go against nature, destroying rather than conserving what the Creator has put at your disposal. That is, interfering with ecological systems which have been intricately designed.